the future of our world.
Hey, welcome back. For the next several videos, we're going to explore some Excel techniques that can be used to process, transform, manage, and manipulate large, structured data sets, the kind typically produced by corporate information systems and databases. This type of data is everywhere in the real world, and fortunately, Excel gives us a number of powerful tools for working with it effectively. The first step when working with this sort of data, of course, is actually organizing it into the rows, columns, cells format that Excel is built around. Now, extracts from databases and information systems often come in the form of text files, in which rows of data are separated into columns by some kind of delimiter. Say, for example, a comma or a space, as opposed to being formally organized into a grid, as with Excel. If you try to copy and paste such a data set, like the one we see here, directly into Excel, you'll end up with a single column of text values, no matter how many actual columns are in the data. Our example data set here contains a number of call center statistics produced by a call center information system. But because this data was exported from the system as a text file, each row of data is scrunched together into a single cell, with the individual values separated by commas. So what we need to do is split this single column into as many columns as there are metrics in each row of data. The trick here will be to split the columns along each delimiter, in this case, a comma. And fortunately, Excel has a built-in tool to help us do just that, text to columns. So let's see if we can use text to columns to transform this dataset into something we can work with. So our first step towards splitting this data into its constituent columns is to select the entire column by clicking our column header A here. And then I'll go to my Data tab on the ribbon. And then over to the right side of that tab, I'll click the Text to Columns button. Now that launches a wizard that will give us a series of options for how we want to split this data. We're first asked if our data is either delimited, which means the values are separated by a character like a comma, or fixed width. Most of the time, the answer will be delimited, and in our case, we know that our data is delimited because we see these commas separating the values. So we'll go with that and click Next. Next, we actually have to tell Excel what the delimiter is. So by default, Excel is guessing that a tab character is our delimiter, but we know better. We know that our delimiter is actually a comma. So we'll uncheck tab and then check comma. And after we select comma, if you look down to the data preview section, you'll see that our data is now split off into columns. So we'll click Next once again. And here in the last step, I can optionally apply formats to the different columns that I'm importing. But that's also something we can do once the data is split off into its constituent columns. So I'll go ahead and click Finish to complete the process. And there we have it. We have successfully split our data into the 6 columns it was originally composed of. So lastly, I'll just highlight these columns and then auto-fit their widths, and our data set is mostly good to go. The last step I could take is formatting our call timestamp from this serial number here to an actual date time format, which I'll go ahead and do. And it looks like we're good to go. Now, in certain situations, text to columns can also be used as an easy, user-friendly alternative to complex combinations of nested text functions. For example, if we wanted to split the names on this worksheet into separate columns, with the first names in one column and the last names in another, we could use some combination of text functions like left, right, find, and mid to get the job done. But if you're not a formulas and functions guru, or you just like a good shortcut, you can use text to columns to get the job done in a snap. So the steps will look just like before. We'll select the entire column and then hit our Text to Columns button. And our data is in fact delimited, but this time by a space. So we'll leave delimited selected and choose Next. And then instead of specifying a comma as our delimiter, we'll instead choose a space. And then we'll click Next and then Finish. And in just a few mouse clicks, we've successfully split our first and last names into separate columns. But there is one wrinkle here. You'll notice that for our one person with a middle name there on row 5, their middle name is occupying the last name column, column B, and their last name has been pushed all the way over to a third column. Since there was a second space in that name, Excel automatically split the value into 3 columns. Not a huge deal to clean up manually on a small dataset like this, but could become potentially more of an issue on a larger dataset. An intricate enough combination of text functions could account for middle names in a case like this, so it's just something to keep in mind when weighing text to columns as a shortcut versus text functions. Okay, now that we know how to wrangle the kind of text data commonly produced by large information systems, we'll next turn our attention to some built-in tools for bringing this kind of data into Excel cleanly and efficiently, with no copying and pasting required. I'll see you then.